All right, I think we are live.
Yep.
Welcome back. This is your host, Pastor Jose Luna from Disciples of the Word Ministries. Disciples of the Word Ministries is located at 63 Arlington Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. in in Nashua, New Hampshire, right in New England, in the heart of New England. And we are very happy to be here with you guys. For those who are watching and those who follow this on YouTube or Facebook, either way, feel free to place your comments underneath or your questions. And if you're going to make comments, make sure that you are not rude or anything. Otherwise, we will not post your comment. All right. So we like respect, and there are some things that we might be saying that you might disagree, and it's okay to disagree. You don't have to agree with me on anything. All right. Therefore, let us begin with uh, in our church, we're doing what is called the yearly Bible study reading, and they just entered into the book of Esther. And we are going to just take a closer look at that. It's a book that must be read by every Christian, especially these days with the continual rising of anti Semitism and continual condemnation of Israel, because the book of Esther is a book that tells us that when you do not take a stand, God always finds a way to deliver his people. Therefore, um, let us go to the book of Esther, chapter 1, and I'm going to, we already prayed before we went live. So I'm going to be sharing my screen right here about the book of Esther, chapter 1. Can you guys see? Should I make it a little bigger? Okay, there you go. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus, who reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the castle, in the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even 180 days. And when these days were fulfilled, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the castle, in Shushan the castle, both great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were hangings, verse 6, of white fine cotton and blue bordered with cords of fine linen and purple upon silver rods and pillars of marble. The couches were of gold and silver upon a pavement of green and white and shell and onyx marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the bounty of the king. So we're going to leave it there. We won't go that far today. We are just going to make an introduction, but we are going to spend the next few weeks dissecting a little bit more of this book. This book is, a lot of people don't like it, especially within certain world religion. They don't like the book of Esther because it does not mention the name of God. That's the excuse. And in reality, is because the book speaks about the deliverance of the Jewish people from the oppressing powers of the enemies that are always trying to wipe out the Jews. It's like the history repeats itself. This is not new. When people are trying to annihilate and wiped out the Jews from the face of the earth. We are seeing more and more these days, uh, just in the last 2 years or 3 years or so. Um, you know, 500,000, for example, just to give you an example, 500,000 Syrians were being massacred by their own people, and you didn't hear anybody protesting anywhere. Over almost over 400,000 Yemenis were killed by their own people. You didn't hear anybody protesting anywhere. And yet here comes Israel defending itself against an attack, and everybody's protesting worldwide because it's just this anti-Semitic mindset against Israel. So this book deals with this very problem, and we're going to get not today into the philosophical mindset of and the theological mindset of people who want to wipe others out, people who see others as an inconvenience and try to get rid of them from the plane of existence, which is really sad. Anyway, but this is the setting. The setting. What's happening in this first chapter is a setting, and the setting is fascinating because it begins with the time of Ahasuerus. He was, a king for the Middle Persian Empire. And it tells us that he reigned from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces. And the fact that it begins with that, the old sages, rabbis, connect this number 127 with Sarah. Sarah lived up to 127 years, and the prophecy about Sarah in Genesis 17 is that kings and kingdoms would come out of her loins. And it basically, the idea that the sages are trying to suggest here, we won't get into the details of that. I'm just mentioning this as an introduction, is that basically there is some sort of connection between Esther and Sarah. We won't get into that. It's just to give you some information. But the setting here also tells us that in those days, during this time when King Ahasuerus, which is also Artaxerxes, is the same name, Ahasuerus in reality is a title, and it's not a personal name. It's a title, Ahasuerus. All the Middle Persians were called Ahasuerus, like the kings in Egypt were called pharaohs, and in the emperor in Rome were called Caesar. So Ahasuerus is the royal title for the king of the Middle Persian Empire. So he sat on the throne, his kingdom, and the capital of the kingdom was in Shushan. Shushan was the capital. Here, the old translation says the castle, right? Where the palace was, basically. And in the third year of his reign, which tells you the exact timing of the setting of this story, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces, everybody before him. Why is he doing this? He is trying to consolidate his power. He spent 3 years looking around, shutting down enemies, potential contenders to the throne. And after he did that, then he's consolidating the power because he is thinking in expanding this power and making sure that all these provinces that have been conquered by the Middle Persian Empire, all these nations, all these different countries that are now under the banner and the flag, the political flag of Middle Persia, they are on the same page in regards to not only paying tribute or taxes, but also in regards to their allegiance to their new emperor, to their new king, because the one who wins the war is the one who really sets up the tone for how people are going to be ruled. In doing that, what he established was that he put governors in all those 127 provinces, and those governors would have some sort of accountability system towards the crown. And And he wants to bring people together. He wants people to understand that they are not isolated. It would not matter if they lived in India, as far as India, or as far as Ethiopia in Africa. That would not matter, because by bringing everybody together to the capital for a long party, a party that lasted 6 months, with everything paid by the palace, basically sending a powerful message to all the court people, all the officers of the court, all the officers of the government of the kingdom. You have the greatest kingdom you have ever been. This is a privilege for you to serve my kingdom. And in doing so, he's winning the hearts of the people. He's making sure that everybody feels included. He's making sure that everybody has a voice at the table and everybody has something to give to the king. Now, what he does, he showed them the riches that the empire has. He's basically letting them know that they are not dealing with a broke empire and broke king. They should be proud of their heritage, their legacy, and everything that comes with serving the Middle Persian Empire. So all this description, remember, the Bible is a minimalist book. So when the Bible goes out of its way to show you details of different things, like this one about, how many days, what type of feast it was, uh, what type of curtains they were using, what type of clothing they were wearing, that type of things, is the Bible basically saying you need to pay attention to the setting. The setting is very important because there is a political maneuvering that the king is doing, and is consolidation of the kingdom. And in order for him to do that and create a setting for this story, or to create the tension for this story, the setting is very important so that we understand what's going on. Now, then another thing is that he gave people alcohol, right? And royal wine in abundance. So this is not cheap wine. This is royal wine in abundance, according to the pleasure, the bounty, is all English, the bounty of the king. Good thing I learned English with the King James Bible, so it's easier for me to understand this old language. But basically, or not only according to the pleasure of the king, but also according to the generosity, better said, better, I think it's better, to the generosity of the king. The king was being generous. You wanted to drink whole day. You wanted to drink until you passed out. You had 6 months to do it. Basically, the government was just running on its own while all the officers were partying, right? And there was a law for this drinking. However, the law specifically said do not force anyone to drink, right? And this was very important because you go to some Asian countries where you are not promoted if you don't drink at work. You are not promoted at work if you do not drink with your boss, if you do not drink with your supervisor, if you do not go out with them, which is ridiculous to me, is even ludicrous because, a lot of people don't drink. So even though you are the most capable, you will pass the promotion because you don't go out drinking with everybody. And that's problematic. So, um, so this law particularly, he's saying, I don't want anybody to be forced to drink. This is basically if they want to drink, do not compel anyone. For so the king had appointed all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. So basically, whatever people want to do, they want to drink beer, that's fine. They want to drink wine, that's fine. They want to drink hard liquor, that's fine with me. I don't care. As long as they want to do what they want to do, that's fine with me. Basically, he's giving them a green light to do whatever they wanted when it came to drinking. He didn't want anybody felt that they needed to do it in order to show their allegiance to the king. And this is a very powerful psychological strategy for those who are in politics that might be watching this. Guys, if you really want to learn good politics, you need to come to this book, because this book, particularly the book of Esther, is a must study book when it comes to how to behave yourself in politics, in political circles. And this is excellent, I would say. Verse 9, also Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. So these guys didn't come alone. They came with their wives. And because they came with their wives, now they needed a host. And the host was the queen, Queen Vashti. And we can say a lot about her and where she came from. We won't spend time with that. You can go that on Google, whatever encyclopedia, and find everything about Queen Vashti that you can imagine of. But what we are saying here, based on the psychological propaganda that the king is setting up to consolidate his power in the kingdom, King Ahasuerus, is that his wife is also together, apparently, with him on this. He needs these women also who have the ears of this powerful man to go home, go to their hotel rooms, right? Let's call it like that, and basically speak lavishly about the king and why their husbands needed to support the king. So, and this basically fell on the hands, on the shoulder of Queen Vashti. But what happened on the seventh day after this particular this particular party to the women? On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Besetha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Sethar, and Carcas, the seven chamberlains that minister in the presence of Ahasuerus the king. The king had seven chief counselors, like an executive council, similar to the executive council here in New Hampshire. I believe the executive council here in New Hampshire has five counselors. I don't remember. But this king had seven. With him was eight. So the eighth, that's also another powerful mystical subliminal message that he's sending. Basically, he's like the rebirth, because the number eight in Semitic mindset means rebirth, the resurrecting to life, coming back to life. So basically, he's bringing this kingdom to a whole new level, to bringing it to a whole new life, plane of existence. And so he takes these seven guys, and he asked them. The interesting thing is that he asked the seven of them to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the peoples and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on. So this is a beautiful woman, and the king is not going to the queen and asking her, "Can you, can you please um, come and let's have some sort of a state presentation in front of everybody. I need you on my side, that people see that we are unified." He didn't do that. He didn't send a messenger. He sent his seven princes. By sending his seven princes, what he's doing is he's sending a very powerful message to Queen Vashti, saying, this is a political thing, which also gives the idea at the personal level that he didn't care much about Vashti, that somehow there was not some chemistry between the two of them. That's why he's not even going himself to ask her. But by sending the seven princes, the seven chief counselors, to talk to her so that she would come to the banquet, he's saying this is a state issue. This is an empire problem that we need you here in front of everybody, that everybody comes and see And I want to feel proud that you and I are in unity. And people that don't read well the Bible, they give the conclusion, or they arrive to the conclusion, that the king wanted to diminish Vashti, to bring her down to, you know, under his level. And but that's not the case. You need to understand the setting. That's why reading the setting is important. Reading what's going on will, in the previous context, will give you the exact idea that he is consolidating power. So she's also a critical piece in this power consolidation, or in this consolidation of power. So anyway, in verse 12, but the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by the chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burnt in him. And obviously, he has a plan. It's a political plan. She is ruining the plan. She was working well, but she's not getting the point. You see, the king is not interested in showing off Queen Vashti. He's interested in everyone to see that they have a unified front. Because according to history, she was the royal one and he was a commoner. And he became a royal one because he married her. So it's a way of basically saying the royal nobility, the nobility of the country is also in agreement with what I'm doing. So this is a political move, a strictly political move. Then the king said to the wise men, the seven guys, right? And I imagine maybe others as well, who knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And he wanted to know what could be done. And the next unto him was Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marcina, and Memucan. Memucan seemed to be like the chief of all of them. The seven princes of Persia and Media, who saw the king's face and sat the first in the kingdom. So these guys now are having a problem in their hand. And what is the problem they have? Well, let's take a look. Here is the question that the king is asking these seven princes. What shall we do unto the queen, Vashti, according to law? We are not going to break the law. We are people of the law. We are not going to do anything shenanigan. We are not going to take shortcuts. We are going to follow this by the book. Remember, this is a political movement maneuvering that he is doing, and if he deviates from the law, he would send a very, very strange message to the same people he's trying to bring under his wings, right? So he needs to do this by the law, by the book, right? And he's angry, but he's not allowing his anger to overcloud his judgment. He goes ask for counsel, and then he says to these guys, I need you to find a way under the law, legally, that I can get rid of this woman because she's not pursuing the same goals that we have. We want to bring everybody under the same umbrella. She's not getting it. Then he said, what shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? For as much as she has not done the bidding of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. So she disobeyed an entire committee of government empire officers. And by which means it's not only that she's ignoring me. She's ignoring the entire government because there are seven of them. There's seven princes. She's telling no to the king, but she's also telling no to the entire idea of consolidating power. And Memucan takes the lead because he seems to be the leader, answer before the king and the princes. And he says, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the peoples that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. All right. And that's what he says. Then he explains his statement. He said, for this deed of the queen will come abroad unto all women to make their husbands contemptible in their eyes, when it will be said, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. And those who are feminists would say, you see, the Bible is a sexist book, etc. But you need to understand the context. That's why reading settings is important, right? In the context of the culture of the Middle East, women don't have, except in Israel, women don't have any value beyond being a property of the man. End of the story. It has been like that for millennia. Do we agree with that? No, we don't, but we need to accept reality here. Unless you live in Israel, woman, you will have no right to say no to your husband. That's the way it is. I don't believe in that. I believe that women should have the right to do whatever they want. If they want to leave their husband, leave their husband. So that's your problem. I'm not here advocating for divorce or separation or anything like that. What I'm saying is that women should have the right to do whatever they want without the blessing or the blessing of the husband, without the constraints of you need to do this because I said so. Of course, you guys need to work together. This is not this is what I'm saying is women and men, the wife and the husband are equal in God's eyes. And yes, we have a responsibility. We are the head of the home, of the household. But we cannot force everybody to follow us. If the woman doesn't want to follow us, then she needs to make a decision. And if what you are doing is not worth following, then she shouldn't follow you. You know how many women have got into terrorism, into blowing themselves up, into taking their kids as shields for Hamas and all that, simply because they follow their husband and they can't say no. That's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Therefore, what is happening here is this is not a sexist book. It's not a sexist story. It's not anti-woman story. As a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite because God uses a woman to bring liberation and salvation to an entire nation. And uses a woman in this book precisely to prevent more bloodshed throughout the entire empire. Therefore, I'm almost done. And this day will, verse 18, and this day will the princesses of Persia and Media, this is Memucan still talking, who have heard of the deed of the queen, say, the like unto all the king's princes, so will there arise enough contempt and wrath. And based on their culture, based on their modus vivendi, or modus vivendi in Latin, basically on their way of living, this was permissible. This was okay. You can't you cannot, how do I say this? We cannot use Western mindset to apply it to interpretation of the scriptures. That's why you need to read settings, backgrounds, history, so that you understand where this setting is taking place. This book is a book that talks about God's deliverance of people without even mentioning the name of God. He uses other people who are now imbued with the Spirit of God, with the power of God, to go and deliver people from death. Verse 19, This is Memucan still speaking. If it please the king, let there go forth a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and that the king give her royal state unto another that is better than she. The king asked right here, in verse 15, what shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? So we're going to do this according to law. And what Memucan is saying, well, we need to issue a decree because there's nothing in the books that can say that we can do something. We need to create a new law. What's the new law? That the queen cannot come before the king anymore. Why? She refused to consolidate power. She is against this kingdom. She's refusing to be part of the consolidation of power, of the unification of the empire. Therefore, she is anti-empire. She is anti-Medo-Persians. That's basically Memucan argument, right? So the king, verse 20, when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published, this is Memucan still talking to the king, throughout all his kingdom, grave though it be, all the wives will give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. And the word pleased the king and the princess, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. Remember, all of this is being done according to the law. They didn't have a way to get rid of her without the constraints of the law. He could have just done it because he was king, but that would not have sent the right message to the very same people he's trying to bring together, right? Therefore, they issued this decree. He sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house and speak according to the language of his people. So this decree needed to go into the 127 provinces. And this decree needed to send a clear message. The king wants to honor all the families in the empire. By doing what? Families need to come together. Couples need to come together. And when you are not following, you are not being part of the unity aspect. Therefore, this is a very interesting book. I would say is fascinating. There's something a lot. My English today is kind of slow, but there is a lot to learn from this book. This is just an introduction. We will continue next week, and hopefully, we will go through the book. Maybe in 3-4 weeks. Hopefully, I don't know, but I will try to be as brief as possible. But what we are going to do in this book, also, we're going to see the connections that exist between Esther and Eve, and between Haman and Adam, and how Esther redeems what Eve failed to redeem, and how Adam failed to to deal correctly. Haman particularly failed like Adam also failed in the Garden of Eden. So there is a very, very strong connection of this story with Genesis 3, the Garden of Eden. And this is nothing new, but we are not there yet. We will get there at some point. Any question?
Well, she knew this was a political thing, right?
Queen Vashti?
Yeah.
Yes, but remember, as we said, Queen Vashti is the royal person. She is the one that has royal blood. Ahasuerus didn't have it.
So she figured since she was royal, she didn't have to do what he said.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why the king needed to find a way legally to deal with this problem because he had only one agenda. I want everybody to be on the same page. This is not to show her um, because she's pretty or anything. I want everybody to see that we are together on this. She's the royal one. I'm the commoner. I just came into power. I have not consolidated my power yet. But also, if we read behind the lines or in between lines, it appears that she was not much in agreement of this party. She was not much in agreement of bringing everybody to the capital.
So that
And
kind of made him look weak too, right?
exactly. And if he really wants to consolidate his power as a king, he really needed to do this. He could have done it by force, but this is a very clever guy. He's not going to use force. He's going to use what he knows best. And what he knows best is political maneuvering. By the way, the word that is mentioned the most, or let me put it this way, I'll leave you with this. The star of this book is not even Esther, and it's not Mordecai. The star of this book is the king himself. We're going to look into that later on. And of course, Esther becomes a star. God saves people through her. But in reality, the name or the title of the king is mentioned almost in every other sentence. Every 1, 2 verses, you will find the name of the king or the title of the king or anything about the king. This book is all about the king and what he did wrong and what he did right. And by looking into that, then we are able to see what we shouldn't do and what we should do if we are in politics. Any question? All right. So remember, we will continue our session on the kingdom, right? We're talking about kingdoms this Saturday, and it's going to be fascinating because we will continue the second part of Revelation 17 about the woman who's drunk, right? That is riding this beast in Revelation 17. And if you don't want to miss it, just come, bring your friends and whoever. And remember, we always eat after service, always eat together. Who would like to pray?
I can pray.
Please.
Lord, we thank you for the Bible lessons with Pastor Luna. May you open all our minds and help us understand everything you're trying to have us know. And may we be of good service to you, and may we help those who need help. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.